On Thanksgiving Eve, 1971, a man in a dark suit stepped out the rear stairs of a Boeing 727, 10,000 feet above the Pacific Northwest, into a screaming rainstorm. He vanished instantly. No wreckage, no body, no parachute, just $200,000 stolen dollars and a name investigators still aren't certain was ever real. He called himself Dan Cooper. Mid-40s maybe, dark overcoat, black tie, a face so plain that 4 flight attendants later couldn't agree on what he looked like. He paid cash for a one-way seat on Northwest Orient Flight 305, Portland to Seattle, Thanksgiving Eve traffic thinning out, everyone eager to just get home. Nothing about him raised an eyebrow. He looked like any tired businessman catching an evening flight before the holiday, briefcase resting quietly on his lap. Minutes after takeoff, he passed a folded note to flight attendant Florence Schaffner. She assumed it was some lonely traveler's phone number and pocketed it unread. He leaned in close, voice calm and low. "Miss, you'd better look at that note," he said. "I have a bomb." She opened it. The typed words were deliberate and chilling. He wanted her seated beside him, so close she could smell the rain still on his coat. He cracked open his briefcase just enough. Inside, tangled wires, red cylinders, a battery. It looked exactly like dynamite. Whether it was real, no one ever learned. His demands were precise. $200,000 in unmarked $20 bills. For parachutes, 2 main, 2 reserve, and a fuel truck waiting in Seattle. The pilot radioed every word to the ground. Somewhere below, the FBI and airline executives scrambled to gather a small fortune before darkness fell over Seattle. For hours, the 727 circled the city while agents assembled the cash and parachutes. Cooper stayed calm through it all, sipping bourbon, even tipping the flight attendant. When the plane finally landed, he freed all 36 passengers. He kept only the crew, and the exchange happened right there on the wet, floodlit tarmac. Cash and parachutes for a jet full of frightened people. Then he ordered something nobody expected. Take off again, destination Mexico City, deep into the night. But he had strange conditions. Fly low, under 10,000 feet. Gear down, flaps at 15 degrees. Cabin left unpressurized. The whole plane groaning against the wind. It was a slow, awkward, exhausting way to fly a jet, and exactly what a man planning to jump out of one mid-flight would need. Somewhere over the dense forests of southwest Washington, near the wilderness by Ariel and Lake Merwin, a small light blinked on in the cockpit instrument panel. Aft stairs open. Cooper had lowered the rear staircase of the 727 in mid-flight, wind roaring through the cabin, rain hammering the open metal steps. Then, wearing nothing but a business suit and thin loafers, he stepped backward into the black, freezing storm below, and simply disappeared into the dark. The crew never felt him jump. No shout, no struggle. Just a sudden shift in cabin pressure, and an emptiness where a passenger used to be. When the jet landed safely in Reno, his necktie sat folded neatly on the empty seat. The money, the parachutes, the man, all of it gone. Below, he'd vanished into mountains, rivers, and timber so thick that search teams could lose sight of each other after only 10 careful steps. For weeks, helicopters, soldiers, and tracking dogs combed that wilderness. They found nothing. Not a scrap of parachute silk. Not a bone. Not a single shoe. Whatever happened to Cooper in that storm? The land closed around it like water over a stone and refused to give a single answer back. 9 years passed. Then, in 1980, an 8-year-old boy named Brian Ingram was digging in the sand along the Columbia River at a spot called Tenabar. He uncovered a rotting package of cash, 3 disintegrating bundles of $20 bills, still held together by decaying rubber bands buried beneath the riverbank. The serial numbers match Cooper's ransom exactly. It should have cracked the case wide open. Instead, it only made the mystery stranger and colder. How did the money end up buried on a riverbank, miles from where investigators believe Cooper had actually landed that freezing November night in 1971? Had he drowned somewhere upstream? Had someone else found the case first and buried it, keeping the rest quiet for themselves? The river said nothing. It simply handed back one more impossible question and slipped back into its slow, indifferent current, carrying whatever else it knew far out of reach. Over the decades, investigators chased hundreds of suspects. Richard McCoy Jr., a Vietnam veteran who pulled an almost identical hijacking just months later, seemed promising. Kenneth Christiansen, a former Army paratrooper who worked for Northwest Orient itself, fit disturbingly well. So did Dwayne Weber, who confessed on his deathbed to his wife. Every single lead looked promising at first, and every single one, given enough time and enough digging, eventually fell apart under its own weight. The one solid clue Cooper left behind was that necktie, folded quietly on the seat, forgotten in the chaos of an empty jet at midnight. Decades later, scientists examined its fibers and found something strange: microscopic particles of titanium and other rare metals used in aerospace manufacturing. It hinted that this ordinary-looking hijacker may have once worked somewhere inside the very industry whose jet he had just calmly outsmarted and abandoned. In 2016, after 45 years and thousands of leads, the FBI finally closed the file, codenamed NORJAK, the largest unsolved hijacking case in American history. They never charged anyone. They never recovered a body. They never even confirmed that the man on that plane was who he claimed to be. So could he have actually survived? Jumping at night, in freezing rain, in a mountains most trained skydivers wouldn't dare touch, wearing only loafers and a suit. No helmet, no altimeter, no real plan beyond the jump itself. Most experts who study the case doubt he walked away from that landing at all. But doubt has never once been proof. And somewhere inside that missing certainty, an ordinary hijacker quietly became one of America's most enduring legends. Maybe he's still out there in that forest, buried beneath decades of pine needles, guarding a secret the trees themselves never bothered to tell anyone. Or maybe he walked out alive that same freezing night, changed his name completely, and spent the rest of his life smiling at the evening news. Either way, most of the money simply vanished, swallowed by a river, a forest, or the quiet passage of 50 stubborn, unanswered years. And so did the man who took it, stepping backward off a staircase into the dark, and somehow never once touching solid ground again. Every few years, someone claims a new clue: a rusted parachute buckle, a deathbed confession, a name that almost fits every detail perfectly. And every single time, the case slips back into the same restless silence it's held since that stormy Thanksgiving Eve over 50 years ago. Some mysteries get solved eventually, by patience, by science, by some final unearthed piece of evidence nobody expected to survive that long underground. This one hasn't. 50-plus years later, D.B. Cooper is still just gone. A folded necktie, a buried bundle of cash, and an open sky. If cases like this one, cold, unsolved, and quietly haunting, keep pulling you back, subscribe, because the next unexplained disappearance is already waiting.